We are back with a new episode. If you follow me as half of the Justice Pod squad on my other channel that I am half a part of, you know that Tashira and I have been following and thinking and kind of bringing awareness to what it means that we have a new Democratic candidate in the race for president. The Democratic Party has enough delegates to nominate Vice President Harris as the Democratic candidate for president for 2024. And so, while I am no expert, it seems like she is going to be the Democratic candidate. And I think there are lots of feelings, but what I want to focus on here is talking about Kamala as a lawyer. What does it mean that she is a lawyer, that she's a former prosecutor, and that she has a record that can be followed, right? In this very, very data-driven way. She was a prosecutor in California. She was the AG of California. She was in that sector for a long time. She prosecuted a lot of cases on her own. She oversaw departments where a lot of prosecutions happened. She oversaw a state, ultimately, where a lot of prosecutions and law enforcement happen. And at the end of the day, prosecutors and the AG in California are a part of law enforcement. I think there are really strong feelings on both sides of the spectrum about whether that's a good or a bad thing. And then there are a lot of people who don't care, right? Like that's kind of what we would call a red herring. Like, oh, I don't care that she was a former prosecutor. And so I think that is also an interesting aspect to this conversation because we all operate, and I've been having this conversation a lot over the last couple of days in our own silos, right? Like, so what content are we seeing? Who are our friends and family? What does our newspaper in our own community say? If you read the newspaper, or what are the people I following say? And what I can say to you as a former lawyer myself and someone who's practiced in the courts for many years, the idea of electing a prosecutor and someone who's been who is a very experienced prosecutor at that, makes me excited for someone who is able to think through issues, who can hold a conversation, who can listen to both sides. And also, there's some real concerns about her record in California that I hear, right? But I think it is very interesting and problematic, honestly, that we're so focused on her record as a prosecutor when the opposition has no record other than his record as president, which involved arguably breaking the law consistently and tearing down precedent and electing judges who have shown to do the same. So that's kind of where I sit, full transparency. I think we can critique Vice President Harris' record as a prosecutor, but I think when we think about her record going into this election, someone who's been at all levels of state and local government, who's run departments, who's been a senator, who's been a vice president, who's worked in the Oval Office, I don't think we have someone more qualified to run for president at this late stage of the game. And I worry that parts of the party that I belong to focusing on her record as a prosecutor is giving talking points to the right. So that's kind of where I fall. I think prosecutors, their job is to evaluate the facts, is to share information, is to apply the law to a case. And I think a lot of prosecutors do that. Now, there's some prosecutors that don't. And I think it's not the best use of our time to focus on that right now. We can hold her accountable we can push forward an agenda that we believe puts people first. I think on the issues of reproductive justice, maternal mortality, other immigration, Vice President Harris's commitment to kind of protecting the rights of those who are most vulnerable has shown to be true through her vice presidency, and I think could be centered even more if she were president. So, more on this kind of both here on this channel and on justice, but that's where I fall. I think her experience as a prosecutor is going to be a value add, kind of in terms of the skills. I also think we forget that she's had a lot of other experiences other than being a prosecutor, including the last 4 years as Vice President of the United States, right? Let's not forget that she has been there for the last 4 years. And while it is my belief, and I know others share my belief, that in many ways she's been silenced by this administration, that doesn't mean that she hasn't seen the inner workings of government kind of from many, many levels, which I think would make her actually quite ready to hit the ground running. I'm Margot Lindauer, and that's the law.